sense of the vision. We really want to become a model global internet hub. I hope you've got a real data-backed understanding of these 6 pillars, or the 5 pillars that we have. And so we got to, at this point, just ask a question, thinking about these are separate pillars, and we can improve on every one, but are they a system? And how do we think about this strategically so we can have this leapfrog strategy? How do we really invest in pulling this all together as your mega region, as RVA 757 Connects finalizes the plan from today and shares it back? So what's this grand strategy? And the questions related to that is, how can we think about this from any other city building this or any other sector building this? We really could bring this together in a way that we're already being pointed to as an international example along with the Iberian Peninsula. So how do we sort of own this? And where do these pillars intersect? Think about it. And some of that came up a little bit in the share outs, but what's missing in terms of structure, in terms of the next 10 years of growth? What institutions are missing from this? So there are a lot of questions to ask. And what we want our panel members to do, and I'm going to invite people that had been on the panels, the 5 panels, to come back up here, and we're just going to go down the row and ask them, what is the one thing that you can do? And I want you guys to think about this like you're a systems architect, or I want you to think about it like you're an investor. Why would you invest in this GIH, this global internet hub here? Or think like a futurist as you listen to our esteemed panelists give us one big insight after another on what they would do. What's our really next step? So what's the grand strategy? How do we incorporate these pillars together into something that really sets us on an unstoppable trajectory? So let me ask Vinay and your group, Eric, to come up here, and Hunter, and Morgan, if you could come up here, and Glenn, and anybody else. And this is not going to be a long panel, but I just want you guys to come up here and share some 30,000-foot kind of comments on kind of what you thought about today, and then where do we go next? And I've got all these microphones over here. If somebody else I missed, please come up here, and we're just going to go down the row. I was worried about Hunter the most. Are the microphones turned on these other ones? Hello? Turn them on, John. Test 1, 2. All right, here we go.
Check.
Test 1, 2.
Okay, you got one more mic. Thank you, John, for the opportunity. I think we've had a great day. It's just been phenomenal kind of listening to a lot of different speakers and really kind of covering various different aspects of the digital infrastructure across the board and, what impacts that and really part of the ecosystem. I think one thing that's extremely important, at least to me, the way I look at it, is what makes the ecosystem thrive is collaboration, is community, it's public-private partnership, right? Bringing it all together. I think that part is extremely, extremely important amongst, not just the 2 mega regions per se, but also you kind of drill down further to various different counties involved and municipalities in terms of, that collaboration aspect. Being a bit more specific, I think we touched on during our panel that for the Hampton Roads region, they're already in the Richmond mega region. There is a distributed internet exchange, which is across 3 different sites. We have Pixel Factory Data Center, Scott Brown. Scott, again, raise your hand, thank you. We got QTS data centers, we got Edge Connects, right? So we got 3 different locations already. And we got to bring that to the Hampton Roads region. We got to bring that to Virginia Beach. And why that's important, because the subsea cables are here. You've got a lot of local traffic that's traversing from this region, so you got to keep that traffic local. And in order for that to happen, I'm gonna pass it on to Hunter to hear some of his views in terms of what we can collaboratively do. And of course, one other point that comes to my mind is that master plan, right? So as I said earlier, I've lived in Northern Virginia for the last 26 years. I have seen the amount of growth that has happened. Now, also on the flip side, carriers are starting to dig up the median because there's no right of way left because there wasn't adequate planning, there wasn't a master plan. So that's one thing we can learn from, if I may, and have that master plan put in place. Hunter?
Vinay, thank you. Thanks, everybody. So as I reflected upon today and all the presentations, the being on the panel, and then all the discussions that I had afterwards, and some of the comments and questions that people asked me, to Vinay's point, how do we sort of encapsulate this so that there's something actionable for you to do now? So there's like a few steps. It's nice to be considered an expert and brought here but I'm not from here. You have a local expert. That's Scott. He knows all the stuff that I know about manholes and dirt and building a building and hosting an internet exchange. Just have him come here and do that. He does it in Ashland today. He could do it here. And then, as Vinay said, you need to have that same sort of neutral interconnection environment in Virginia Beach. And then you've got a mega region. It's small facilities. And actually, it was the gentleman that was just sitting there. I don't know where he went. Local government. He said, do you think there's a trend towards data centers getting smaller? And he says, Pixel Factory's in Ashland, but they're small. I said, you see, you answered your own question. Pixel Factory is an interconnection facility. It's called a data center, but the buildings up in Ashburn are, hundreds of megawatts and huge. That building in Ashland, Pixel Factory, is more important than a data center because it's where all the fiber networks actually meet and interconnect in a neutral, non-carrier-owned building. That hosts the local internet exchange, one of the 3 sites. QTS and EdgeConnects are the other 2. They're much larger companies. Okay, Scott is right there. You can go walk up to him and cut a deal with the guy. Give him the land, give him some money. He'll come and build it and run it. He knows all the carriers. He has the contracts, the service orders, everything. He knows how to design and build it. And what does that do? Neutral network interconnection is the magnet that draws others to come to it, like data centers. And that improves the value of the land that is proximate to it. That is exactly what happened in Ashburn, Filigree Court, and look how much development there's been there. That's step 1. Then step 2 would be what we talked about at dinner last night. RVA 757, how many AS numbers are in RVA 757?
John is going to tell us that tomorrow, right, John? Or by the end of the day, today?
So you got big companies, but how many of them have their own AS? And I looked up William & Mary. I didn't find one. I don't know about Jefferson Labs. A lot of big universities have them. You've got really, you got schools, you have research laboratories. Keep your data traffic local. In order to do that, you need the exchange first. And then number 3, the master plan, as I mentioned and Vinay said, if you don't have conduits going into that new road build on 64, the innovation corridor, you should. Because that's the next generation of fiber that's going to come down through here and energize the land value and then all the economic development that's going to happen after it. If you don't, when the ground is open, it's the time to put it in. You don't want to go back after you pave the road and have to cut it again. That's besides the fact, but it's important when you master plan something. You have to have economies of scale. You have to do things that, use common facilities and rights of way and infrastructure for the greater good for all. There needs to be an administrator of that conduit system. Treat it like real estate. It should not be the Department of Transportation. It should be a private company that just administers and deals with people who want access. And then that will feed all the parcels of land that enable them to become, as I mentioned on my discussion, inference data centers. But more importantly, bring the fiber down from Ashburn to Richmond, Ashland to here, and then beyond to Virginia Beach. Then this becomes a real, super region for anything that happens above that.
Super region and a super highway. And I think another very important component that you guys already have is the Southside Regional Connectivity Ring. And I think to truly harness the value of that across, I believe currently it's across 5 cities. That's Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Suffolk, Portsmouth, and Chesapeake. Thank you. So I think to truly harness the potential of that, right, there has to be a lot more education across different communities. There has to be also interconnectivity. I mean, currently, that is not connected to the subsea cables. So just let's make that clear. It should be connected, yes. It should be expanded to, from what I've heard, there have been some conversations, John, we've had, even in our discussions, that for it to be expanded across the Richmond metro region, right, and potentially beyond. Ashburn, yes, Hunter said 21715 Filigree Court. There is a reason these buildings are known by their addresses. There is one single building that has 365 plus networks in it, and you've got to have connectivity there. Similarly, the NAP in Richmond is 6000 Technology Boulevard, known by its address. Yes, it's owned by QTS. Yes, there's a NAP. Yes, there's a DKIX Internet Exchange there. But I think it's really important for that regional, Southside regional connectivity ring to have that vision in terms of connecting that to the subsea cables and truly harnessing its value proposition across the government sector, across academia, across local businesses. And I believe there is a lot more education that needs to be done for that as well.
Thanks, Vinay. I think you need to protect your critical infrastructure. You need to create protection zone corridors for subsea cables to guarantees that new come in. You need to make sure that your backhauls are well protected. You need to make sure that you plan ahead to have more gas pipelines, more power lines, a lot of stuff to be built. And as Hunter said, you're not going to dig up the road 10 times. It needs to be done ideally once. So that goes back to planning. That goes back to protection. You have to get rid of friction. If it's hard to do these things, companies will go where it's easier, right? So you really need to think about these things. Which government entities are involved in the process, be it state, be it federal, and how can we make it easier, more attractive for the companies to come to this region? That is absolutely critical. And if there's one thing that you take away from today's entire session, if you heard of something that you thought, wow, this is great, ask yourself that question, isn't that interesting? And then dig deeper. Because we have to address all the points that we talked about today to really build and then execute on that plan.
Thank you. So I think I'm going to echo a lot that's already been said. So the 5 pillars that we have are extremely strong, and we have such great assets in each one of those pillars that we could thrive in any one of those. But I think one of the biggest things, and I think all 3 have said this already, is collaboration. And Paul, from Florida, you said boundary spanning collaboration. And I think that's where our differentiator is going to be, is where our pillars can work together. And so cyber may be something that fuels the AI or the data pillar or vice versa. And I think that's where we are going to be strong and we'll be stronger together, is how we can use and work these pillars together to bring the final goal together. So.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback on Glenn, the point that Eric was making earlier, right, in terms of the subsea cables. Now, we have heard a lot during the course of the day, and I'm sure for those of you intimately familiar, the importance of subsea cables, right? And yes, we are building more infrastructure. We need to attract more subsea cables, and that's where the more we can adhere to international standards, like in this case, there's a governing body called International Cable Protection Committee, ICPC. John and I have talked about this before, but there has to be a concerted effort to kind of adhere to their guidelines, to kind of implement some of those best practices that they talk about, regardless of the commercial interest. And that's where the public-private partnership comes in. And what that's going to do for the region is it's going to prepare us better, not just for the existing cable and the protection of the existing cables, but for the next one and for the next one. Yes, there has to be the commercial aspect of it, which is the beach manhole, the bore pipes, the cable landing station, the wet to the dry plant transitioning, and terrestrial fiber and all of that. But I think where this entity can come in collectively is kind of looking at these additional things that can and should be done to truly promote that.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks for sticking out towards the end. Hunter, I appreciated a comment you said earlier about what was happening in Northern Virginia, and I think it provides an opportunity here today is how do we take some lessons learned from the maybe great success Northern Virginia has had in developing this industry, and how can we take that and have more conversations with our community early on and with that collaboration and planning. And I often think about, saw a lot of familiar faces in the room today, but how do we take this conversation to those who aren't in the room today? I saw some local governments, I saw some economic development, but I saw very few local elected officials. And a lot of these decisions on where infrastructure will be, regardless of the type, whether it's just even an easement, will be our local boards of supervisors and city councils. And so while I appreciate a lot of the advocacy that's happened at the state level and with the General Assembly, I'd also encourage just as much, if not more, with our local boards and councils who will hear this more often, and then really encouraging that collaboration with our local councils. And many of us in the room have relationships there, but they're going to need to hear it not just from the data center company, not just from the utility provider, but from the broader business community on the value that this could have to grow our economy locally.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I've had a couple of sidebar conversations earlier during the break that it's extremely important for us to kind of collectively get this message across to Abigail, the new governor, and the governor's office, and even VEDP in terms of truly what that potential of this infrastructure is and where we go from here, right, in harnessing that. And I think that should happen sooner than later.
And I do want to say we've kind of hit our max on this room with 200 people, and we've talked a lot about do we expand and really invite a lot of the elected officials, and so that's something for us to think through going forward. But what a day, and I want to just do one quick shout out. Thank you, Paul, for all of your comments, and Paul's agreed to meet with any of the academic officials that want to go in a little bit deeper in understanding how those programs work with the Florida High Tech Corridor. But that's it for us, and we are really honored to have our two Bryans, the Chamber RVA and the Hampton Roads Chamber, to come and wrap up today. Thank you.
I've got the easy part, so I'll be quick. But let me just say first, thank John and his team, John, Greg, Adair, the board of directors of RVA 757. I've had the privilege of being a part of this for 6 years, and it seems like every one of these gets better and better, and even today topped my expectations, which were pretty high. So key takeaways you just heard, but let me just elaborate a couple. Hunter made the point, put the fiber in the ground now on 64. I'm pretty sure that's not happening, but I hope to be wrong. If it is, then we did something ahead of time, which is not usual in government. Eric said, imagine, and then go do. And we don't do enough of that. We've got to make sure that we can think bigger and then make those actions happen. And I think, again, that doesn't happen at the local level. Very often we think very short term, 1 year, 2 year. We got to think 10, 15 years. Somebody just said regional collaboration is hard. Well, mega regions are even harder. It's hard. I mean, even getting outside of the city of Richmond into a county sometimes can be difficult. Leaving a 9-jurisdiction region and trying to get 17 more to cooperate is even harder, but we can't make that be the region we don't get it done. Paul, our keynote, mentioned Raleigh. I know Adrienne very well, spent time with her. They figured it out. They've got a plan, a secret sauce. I don't know what it is. I don't know how she gets to everything she goes to. However, they're winning. Raleigh's in the top 5 almost every chart you see. They're doing things well. We need to use this mega region format to do that even better. So with that, again, these meetings are made possible by the generosity of our sponsors. You see those on the screen. I won't read them all to you, but just to say, these are the kind of companies that show up all the time. Anything we do, from a dinner for something maybe that's not as big as this or something as big as this, they always show up to make these things happen. So please join me in thanking our sponsors for being part of today. One more. Thanking the speakers. This has been, again, a great lineup. Very knowledgeable. I will admit the first 2 hours, I'm not sure I knew what you were talking about. I'm not a technologist, but I'm grateful you smart folks brought it to us. But seriously, we've got to be living in a digital world. I think one chart John showed just now I'm going to get a copy of, because I know as a former elected official, they don't think in terms of ecosystems as well as they should. So that one slide, John, we need to make sure we use. We go see it every single local government session for the next few months to show them we're not building a data center or a road. We're building things. We're building something really special here, building an ecosystem, and all of you speakers made that happen today. If I got another one, John, or is that it? Again, thank you to you 200 participants for being here today and making sure that we were having the right type of diversity of thought, diversity of jobs, and diversity of people that you represent. I want to thank, on a special note, my colleague and friend, Brian Stevens, and his team. Chambers can be just as competitive as anybody else in the world. But since the day I got here, Brian's become a friend. He's not just a colleague. We work very well together because we believe in the bigger picture. We believe the Commonwealth needs to be more competitive. The Commonwealth cannot be competitive without strong regions, and Hampton Roads and Richmond are working very well together to make sure we can lead this Commonwealth in the next 10 years. So thank you, Brian, for your friendship. More importantly, for making today possible. Thank you.
Well, that was Brian's definition of short. I'm going to show you my definition of short because I get to close this out. I want to thank, is Monty Mason still here? He is not, but I want to thank Monty Mason, works at William & Mary. He hosted us here at the William & Mary Alumni House. What a beautiful facility this is, and I can't think of a better place to do this. I, too, want to take, I'm sorry? Go Tribe. Okay, Susan. I, too, want to thank the chamber staffs, my staff over here, Brian's staff that worked on this pretty much all year long. And I also want to thank John and Greg and Adair with the RVA 757 for really doing the yeoman's work and putting this together. Let's give them all a round of applause. Finally, just for information for you, the website currently has all of the PowerPoint slides that you saw today are posted on the RVA 757 website right now, as well as the videos from this morning's session. This afternoon's session will be posted, Greg, tonight or tomorrow morning at the latest. So everything that you saw today by tomorrow morning will be on the chamber, or the RVA 757 website, so visit there. You can see, go to the session video there at the bottom and you'll see that. So ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to thank all of you for attending. I think we've come a long way in 6 years. I've been involved in this for the last 10 years anyway. And I can tell you this has been the best yet. We look forward to another great event next year. So thank you very much. This concludes the event.